we're going to dive right in shortly. So this event really is about multidisciplinary learning. It's about getting people from engineering, from product, from data, from UX, from design, all over the spectrum of building products these days, into the same room, learning from each other so we can all do our craft better. Tonight, we're focusing on managing complexity and really looking at necessary complexity in the products that we build. And so, to kick us off, we have David Cameron.
Great, thanks. All right, so I'm going to talk about managing complexity. First, I'll do a quick intro of who I am. So I'm David Cameron. I'm a product lead here at Shopify. I've worked here for 3 years now, and just a few random tidbits if you're interested in kind of learning more about me. I dabble with a bunch of different side projects. I'm constantly learning something new. And so home automation, before I joined Shopify, was something I really got interested in. And for whatever reason, actually one of my favorite automations is automating my washing machine. And so if you have a high efficiency washer, the estimated time is never the actual time, and that just sort of frustrated me. And so I just created a simple automation which basically measures the power usage, and when the power usage goes to 0, it sends me a push notification. Also got a nice microphone at one point, and I thought, hey, I could make a YouTube video. So that's a video if you're interested in automating PowerPoint presentations. So any of those that create status reports in the room on a weekly or monthly basis. The first time I was asked to do one of those, I spent the 3 hours actually building the automation and never had to do it again. So if you're interested, this is sort of the hello world. I also developed some internal tools here at Shopify. I have a computer science background, and so you'll notice that my approach to product management is very much from a technical perspective and how I approach things. And so what's nice about that is when I have a problem in my own role, I can just go and write automations in order to solve some of those problems. And so I built some internal tools to specifically capture merchant feedback and then understand the product lifecycle. All right, so first, I want to talk a little bit about Shopify Plus. So for those that this might be your first time here, Shopify Plus is a part of the organization that's focused on our largest merchants on the platform. So here's just a few brands. There's a whole bunch of brands on the platform, but essentially your largest retailers, either completely online or ones that are doing millions of dollars in revenue a year. Just to put that in perspective, we've got about 7,000 plus brands on the platform, and I think on average we're getting about 11,000 checkouts per minute. So some of the merchant challenges that this particular group has, and specifically what we're trying to focus on here in the team. So maybe I'll just describe for a moment. So myself, Mitch, and Jose, we're all in the automation team. So you're going to notice this thread throughout tonight. We all work together trying to help our merchants automate more of the tasks. So with that, every merchant, when they get to this scale, has their own intricacies of how they actually want to run their business. If you think about it, it makes sense. When they're small, they differentiate themselves against the competition by creating unique experiences. And as they scale, it's very hard for them to then replicate those constantly, especially if they're manual tasks. And so that's where tooling comes in and helps them automate the same things that created those delightful moments with 10x, 100x, 1,000x in terms of customers, orders, products, etc. So here's some examples of what a merchant may be concerned with today on the platform. When you're at this scale, you can't review every single order that comes in for its riskiness. And so then they need some way of identifying the ones that really need their attention versus the ones that don't. Managing the visibility of inventory as well. You don't want to have a product that you can't buy on the storefront, and you've got 1,000 of them. It's very hard to manage. Reordering inventory when stock is low, building personalization experiences. So going back to, again, adapting to what customers expect today when they do online shopping. They expect a personalized experience, and how can you make that when you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of customers that interact with you. So I want to talk a little bit about how we help our merchants actually solve for some of these problems. So traditionally, at some companies, they'll actually have complete parts of the organization that are focused on these efforts. They'll do professional services where you can actually come and pay a quoted amount and actually get a customized piece of software. Obviously, Shopify doesn't take quite that tack and have a really impressive partner experience. And so we have partners that actually fill that need. So there's agencies that will give that high touch experience, and that's actually enabled us to scale to over 1 million merchants on the platform and help out 7,000 plus brands on Shopify Plus. The other thing you'll see in some other companies is actually baking into a contract a particular feature. And that's just something that we don't do here at Shopify, which is actually from a product perspective. If there's any product managers in the room, this is probably a familiarity if you're dealing with an enterprise. These are some of the things that are necessary if you target an enterprise audience very early on. Your product will never necessarily 100% fit. And so it's quite common to say, yes, we'll do that feature if you sign a contract. Because Shopify started really with an entrepreneur and kind of grew up market, we had this luxury of already having a well-established base of customers, which enabled us to say, kind of no to those one-off features and actually bake that into the contract. And so instead, what we really focus on is extensibility tools, so our APIs, and a lot of it what Mitch is going to talk about is we continue how do we enable more of Shopify to be extensible by others so that we don't have to build those features. And instead, we can focus on what 80% of our merchants need and really build to the common base and just enable everyone else to build for the rest. So, role of automation, my particular team. So what we're trying to do is actually save merchants time. They can't do these things manually. They can't spend all this time. One of the things I heard early on when actually doing research on this was merchants were hiring people where their full-time job was basically following a list of tasks. Do this, go check these things. If it matches this thing, then fulfill the order. If not, go do that. And so that's not an enjoyable task for someone. That doesn't require additional thinking. It's really just following a set of rules. So those are the things that we want to help our merchants and help free that individual to work on other things, like actually growing their business. The other thing is we want to provide tooling that allows them to experiment quickly. Just because it's a large revenue company doesn't mean it's actually a large team. That's one of the fascinating things. When I joined Plus, I assumed that you'd have massive companies that are supporting some of these brands. And what's actually reality is very small core teams in some cases, where there's 4 people behind a massive brand. And so they want to experiment, and they want to do that quickly. That's what made them successful early on, and that's what we're trying to enable as they scale. And the other thing that we heard back in building some of these tools was the reliability of the platform. And so we have flash sellers, and a flash sale is whenever you've got a really hot item that sells out really, really quickly. When that happens, you've got a concentrated number of orders that are happening all at the same time. And if you're a partner that integrates with Shopify, we're going to send through a whole bunch of APIs and provide you kind of denial of service. And so with our tooling here, if we provide those automations, we understand how to scale our systems to handle that peak load. It's just part of our everyday. We see that across thousands of merchants that do it all the time, and so we built the resiliency into our platform, and that's really where they're looking to our automation tools to be able to support them. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the products that we have. This is sort of an intro to some of the stuff that Mitch and Say are going to talk about, but you'll see that there are 3 particular tools that we have to help our merchants. So this is Shopify Flow. This is a visual editor for our merchants, where they can basically say, like, if an order comes in, if it's marked as a medium or low risk order, just go ahead and capture that. If it's a high risk order, now I want to have some sort of inspection. That could be send a Slack message, send an email. These are the types of automations that you could create. And what we were really trying to do here was enable that business domain knowledge person to be able to have confidence enough to actually build these things themselves. Because they're the ones actually encountering all of these issues. We want to give them the tools so that they can feel confident to actually make those changes themselves. Then we have Shopify scripts. So Shopify Scripts is interesting from a product perspective because we've actually given coding capabilities. They can actually write code that we ship and execute right inside of our checkout. So there's really interesting security concerns here. Obviously, when you give somebody a code editor, you say, have at it. If you actually are interested, we've got some articles on HackerOne whenever this was originally released 3 years ago. And one of the things that Shopify does is we pay ethical hackers to constantly try to hack our system, and when they find vulnerabilities, we will pay those out. So there's really interesting articles on what Shopify has paid. So obviously there's something like this on executing it in other people's code. It's something we care deeply about. What this does is allow people to create their own discount mechanism within checkout. So if you can imagine trying to satisfy all of the discounts that you can have in any particular store, where it's like you buy 2 couches, you get 20% off, and you buy any take appliance, you get an additional 5% off. It's pretty hard to build a UI that can actually match all of the possible conditions in order to satisfy that. So what Scripts allows people to do is I can write code, I can write conditional blocks that actually represents all of the nuances and complexity that some of these merchants actually have. And so we do this for discounts as well as shipping and payment options, which allows them to codify some business rules and really just automate that aspect of their checkout. And our last product here is called Launchpad. This enables that weekly sale cadence. So you think about it on a weekly basis, you've got new promotions, so you have new banners, new themes, potentially new products, maybe new inventory, maybe you have different scripts that you want to run, and this enables you to kind of automate those, sort of pre-plan, set it, and forget it. So with Flow and Scripts, we're kind of building multi-purpose. It doesn't solve a specific problem, it sort of enables a class of solutions to various problems, and actually unique problems per merchant. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges from a broader perspective when we think about building multi-purpose versus feature. So with a feature, typically it's like, there's a specific problem I'm going to solve, and I can go and understand exactly what they're trying to do. I can understand all the steps that are necessary in order to solve that specific problem, and then I can build a feature for that. It's usually clear at the end, did they use it, or did it have the intended outcome of that particular feature? When you're building something like Flow and Scripts, there isn't a specific thing, and adoption doesn't really feel like a great metric here. The other thing is who are you building these things for? Specifically with a feature, usually there's like 1 or 2 personas that typically do this particular task, so it's a little bit easier to kind of focus in, and they're usually in the same sort of area. What I find with Flow and Scripts as an example is that while we're trying to build a solution for certain users to find approachable, there could be widely different people. One could be a partner, actually, a developer in working on behalf of that merchant, as well as the merchant themselves. And the other thing is it's difficult to evaluate whether or not you build the right thing. This is sort of the constant challenge that I have in a product perspective. It's very uncomfortable to build capabilities without having a specific measurable problem that you're trying to solve, which is actually pretty challenging. And I'll get into a little bit later on how I actually recommend you try to solve that yourself. So one of those ways is actually building a library of data. So early on, I had a bunch of conversations with merchants. I said, what are the things that you're doing kind of day to day, constantly manually doing? And so this is where you see some of my developer side of it come out. On the left-hand side is an early version of how we actually represented this sort of condition diagram. And so what I was hearing from merchants is they said, well, when an order is created, if it's a large order, I want it to go here. If it's not a large order, I want it to go there. And I was like, okay, can I actually represent that in the data that we had? Can I visualize this? Obviously, this wasn't what the design ended up being. It's not circles and lines, but you get the idea. And I actually, in preparing for this talk, I went into my computer, and 3 years ago, this was actually when I created this. And here's a bunch of other examples. So every time I heard one of these use cases, I tried to build what that flow would look like. And I said, is this understandable? Does this make sense? Could this work? And you start building out 10, 20, 30 of these things. And it's very easy to see, like, look at all the possibility of tagging. Tagging unlocks an entire class of use cases. Same thing with Slack. Same thing with certain things. And so it's actually becomes pretty comforting that you can look at specific examples and say, hey, if I built these 3 things, then I know I can solve all these. And you kind of do that over and over and over again, and you can sort of create that prioritized list of capabilities. And you know that while you have a specific problem you're going to solve, you have an entire class of things you're going to solve. The other neat thing about building sort of these platform multi-purpose tools is that people are incredibly creative. So one such conversation I had recently with a retailer is this clearance rack type challenge. If you think about it, the clearance rack is where you put all of the mismatched sizes. You go there. On an online store, also, we have the same problem. It has 7 different sizes, and 5 of them are out of stock. You really don't want that to be on your main page. And so, what was interesting is they're actually using Flow and monitoring inventory, and every time inventory changes, they're looking at all the other variants, so all the different sizes, and seeing if it hits a threshold. And if it does, it automatically moves it to another collection. And so what's interesting about how Shopify is built is a lot of that's done through tags. You can add a tag to something, and it'll get moved to a different collection. The other interesting part here is because I have this tag, I can now leverage that in Shopify scripts to automatically apply a discount. So you can actually start seeing like pretty complex operations that are happening that solves a real use case, which is how do I automate some of these merchandising tasks that I want to have a really great customer experience, and I don't have to do this manually. Another example of how people are using scripts is if you've ever tried to buy a drone, you know that you can't have it on an airplane. And if you recall the last time you went on an airplane, they said, do you have any of these batteries in your carry-on luggage? If so, you have to declare it. Well, the same thing is true when you buy things online. And what they do with scripts is they check basically a tag on that product, and they take that product with hazardous. And so then in the checkout experience, when it recognizes that there's a product in the cart hazardous, it removes the express shipping option. And so what's interesting is that this wasn't designed necessarily to solve this specific problem, but now we can see that there's actually a really elegant solution for solving this in a way that we're not going to know with Shopify whether or not a drone is a hazardous or non-hazardous product to ship on an airplane. But we've enabled our merchants to codify this so that it sets the right expectation in the checkout and all of the downstream systems work. The other interesting piece with Flow I've seen is how merchants use it to automate some customer service. So if you think about it, I call in, I had a bad experience with my first order. That merchant is really incentivized to make sure that all of experiences are stellar. So in one merchant, what they did was they created individual flows that basically matched that condition. If an order came in from that particular user or from that particular customer, it would then send an email or a Slack message making sure that that actually got to the top of the list. Or maybe it added a free gift, or maybe there was a new note. So what was really interesting is that is how one user uses Flow, and it's really, really beneficial for their particular use case of differentiation. And we have completely different, wildly different merchants that are using it for something completely different. Here's sort of like the 3 things I do when I approach sort of these multi-purpose products. Is first, really understanding what are the possible problems that we're trying to solve, try to document those against all the things we're trying to build, and see if there's a kind of set of capabilities that we can build. Then build those capabilities, but build them in a way that you can observe and understand what people are actually doing with those capabilities. And then the other piece is gathering feedback. So that internal tool I talked about earlier, I use that to gather that internal feedback on how people want to use the tools. and then also observe what people are doing with the tools, and then continue to add more capabilities so we can continue to observe and build more capabilities and unlock more potential. So that's a little bit about kind of how generally we approach these. Are there any specific questions people have? Probably have time for a couple questions, and then I'll turn it over to Mitch.
We'll take exactly 2 questions.
I'll be around.
And then at the end, we'll do another round of questions, and you can also ask them directly.
Just a question. What do you think the makeup between people who use flow versus script?
Yeah, that's a good question. So today with scripts, it's very developer-centric. And so in terms of merchants, we actually find that merchants are using both. They're using, because one is for the checkout experience for implementing business rules, and the other one is really for kind of ad hoc systems. So if we talk about which merchants are using it, there's probably 50% of our plus merchants are using one or the other, or both. In terms of the persona or the individual that's actually building these things, one is definitely geared more towards somebody that is learning kind of logic or learning pieces, and that's where the flow becomes a lot more approachable. Whereas scripts is definitely Ruby code, so there's a pretty significant lift in terms of understanding that. But what we do see is partners will actually create these initial scripts and then put, here's the things you can change. You want to change the discount code, or you want to change the percentage. So there's some workarounds to make it a little bit more approachable. Is that?
So with the script solution, there is always a possibility that the merchant writing the code doesn't write a good code.
Yeah.
How do you maintain quality?
Yeah, so the question for those, with scripts, you can't guarantee that people write good code. How do you deal with that, maintain that? So in this screenshot at the very bottom, when you run these, we give you a CPU and memory, how much time you actually took. And what we do with scripts is we actually kill the script if it exceeds a certain memory or CPU or time. And the idea there is checkout is pretty critical. We definitely don't want to have a 5-second script running a checkout. That's just not going to scale. It's going to hurt conversion. It's definitely not the right thing to do. And so what we do is we actually have timeouts, or if it exceeds 100 milliseconds, it can fail. And we tell the merchant that we did that. So they get an email, and they said, this happened, this error happened, is that feedback? And then they can opt. That's sort of our forcing function. But and if there's a runtime error, logic error, we'll also send a notification about this. Mitch is going to talk more about scripts, so if you have more questions, you can probably save them for that. Everyone, thanks, David.